Welcome to the Sweet Time to Fighting podcast. Today we have Chase. Is it Chase? Cichos? Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah, you got it right. Didn't even ask me before. You got it right.
I know. I'm well traveled.
Thank
Perfect.
you
No,
for that.
it's awesome to have you on. I've seen you around Instagram. You got some good content on there as well. So, for people like myself and probably the listeners as well who aren't too familiar with what you do and done, do you want to maybe give you a little story there and we can go straight into it?
Yeah, so I'm Chase Chicos. I run a performance training company called Chase Your Dreams Performance. Been in a combat sports game. That's where I focus most of my attention. That's what I'm most known for. Been working with UFC athletes since 2017. So yeah,
Quite a
eight
while.
Yeah, almost 10 years now at the highest level. I also work with jiu-jitsu athletes. Yeah, pretty much all combat sports athletes. That's what I have Muay Thai strikers. I have pretty much if you in the combat sports world, I work with athletes in that field, and that's what I'm most known for. In 2021, I was nominated for the MMA Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year, which was a huge honor just to be recognized, for the work we put in. You Sometimes recognition goes a long way. You just want to be recognized, even though
Yeah.
if you don't win, it doesn't. It comes down to like a popularity vote, but just to even be put up on with my name on that list of coaches that a lot of them I looked up to and seen as mentors, to just see my name on the list with them was awesome at that point in time. And yeah, I'm just a yeah I love combat sports, all of them. I watch them all. I'm a big fan of all of them, and it's kind of what got me into the field. I also train myself. uh I'm very amateur and not good at any of them, but that's that's okay.
That's all of us.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. That's
No.
awesome. Wait, I had a follow-up question and I just completely forgot it. Oh my gosh.
It's okay.
My brain has fried this one. No, it's all good. We'll just carry on. It'll come back to me.
Yeah,
But
no
this
problem.
is what I wanted to ask you. The UFC athletes you've trained, are you okay with name dropping a couple of them for the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with Marvin Vittori. I still work with Marvin Vittori. Kelvin Gastelum. No longer work with Kelvin because he relocated to back to Arizona. Um, Giga Chikadze, Udos Medic. I've worked with Nasrat Hapkaras in the past. I work with who are some other Fernando Padilla, another UFC athlete I work with now currently. Um, that's I mean, I'm sure there's a few more. I hope I'm not like disrespecting them by it'll come to me later. But yeah, I've worked with quite a few UFC athletes. I have some PFL guys also. Um, that's just the UFC. I've also worked with like black belt world champion jiu-jitsu athletes and whatnot, and still work with them. Usually when I start working with people, they tend to stick with me, which is a huge testament to my work. If I mean, for me, that's the biggest thing, right? If an athlete comes to
Yeah.
you and really never leaves, I think you must be doing something right, and they must see value in what you do.
Oh, I love that. No, perfect. Let's go into some of the details of maybe around your philosophy around. Let's start with MMA. We can kind of keep it
Yeah.
contained into one thing for now. But I guess say we can start even with the UFC side. UFC athlete comes to you to start training. Maybe let's run through. This is going to be a very general question, but
Uh
let's just
huh.
start with maybe general strength conditioning philosophy. What are you really looking at, and what are you looking to try and achieve? And if there's anything you're doing to identify maybe what needs to be done.
Yeah. So as soon as somebody comes to me, if it's already a UFC athlete, I've probably already seen them fight, or if they're just getting into UFC, I will already have watched them. Uh, and just by watching people fight, you can start to identify certain things, especially the more octagon time they have. Right, the more time in there they have, the more you can start to identify certain physical attributes they possess, certain physical attributes they may lack. But once I get them in the gym, uh, I'll put them through an assessment. And when I say assessment, I don't have like, I used to do more like, oh, I have set assessment standards that we were looking at. And I've I've moved off of that from the last few over the last few years because really once I start putting them through a warm up and start having them move a little bit, I can start identifying things just through that.
Mm.
Now,
Yeah.
when you first get into the game, you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this functional movement screening, or I'm gonna do different things like that." And those things are great. Those are great because they have standards and they give you something to identify as a young coach, especially if you don't have the most experience, that you can like identify right away. But the more experience you get, the more you can kind of like have an eye, I believe. Then I tend to trust my eye, what I'm seeing, how they move and different things. Um, yeah, so I'm identifying those things right away. Now, if it's an UFC level athlete, we also usually have the benefit of having them tested at the UFC PI. Now,
Mm.
those things are can come in handy, um, but it's not the end all be all. I wanna get that message out to like a lot of coaches because I think um, especially early in my career, I did this. Like I would see these tests and I would like, oh, we gotta make up this because we're a little bit behind in this, and it becomes uh paralysis by analysis. Like I'm just looking at all these numbers and now I'm only trying to improve these numbers when I really lose sight of like the overall goal, which is performance in the octagon. Okay,
Hmm.
performance in sparring. I'm one of the coaches that I will go watch my guys spar, and if I don't get to watch them, I watch the videos and I'm relying on major feedback from them. Hey, how are you feeling in the sparring? How are you feeling in this and that? Because listen, at the end of the day, if you're telling me you feel good when you're in the octagon, you feel good in training, you feel strong, nobody's throwing you around. If you have the endurance and you have the conditioning, and you're and all those things are lining up, then okay, we'll keep progressing along those lines. Now, a lot of times, guys will come to me and maybe they might be having a conditioning problem or say, oh, you know what, these guys might feel stronger than me, so I know where we have to work. And along with watching the sparring, I can look and watch and see, okay, maybe we need to get a little bit faster. Maybe we need to be able to um, have a little bit more explosiveness when it comes to like a shot or like a takedown defense or something like that. And all those things are very technical. At the end of the day, physical attributes can help. How can I say it? Those can help show your technique at a higher level. It can help you perform the technique, right? If I'm shooting in a takedown and I can shoot really fast, obviously I'm going to penetrate faster. I'm going to penetrate faster, and that's a good thing, right? Same thing with takedown defense. If somebody shoots on me and I have explosive hips, they're going to feel that defense hit them right away. So just little stuff like that. I mean, there's no like I wish everything was just cut and dry, like, oh, boom, this is it, and this is what we got to do. But in the reality, there's so many different variables in combat sports that it's hard to identify KPIs, like key performance indicators, and it's really hard to like nail that stuff down. So in reality, my approach is a holistic approach, and I'm looking to perform like I'm looking to improve all these physical attributes really all year round. And
Mm.
for certain fighters, we might emphasize certain things more at different points in time, right?
Hmm. So, in terms of a global outlook on the periodization, then it wouldn't be a traditional like block periodization. It's kind of like vertically integrated. You're always addressing everything, but maybe biasing certain things.
Yes, yes, yes. I don't do very strict block periodization. We will have times when we are focusing on strength development. We will have times when we are focusing on more power, but I'm never ever leaving anything out of the program. We are always
Yeah.
going to do some kind of plyo, some kind of ballistic training, some kind of strength movement, some kind of prehab rehab mobility exercise, whatever that may be. We always integrate all of those attributes into the program. I'm never going to go through a block with my guys where it's just like, okay, this is all we're going to do for the next 4 to 8 weeks and
Mm.
we're not going to worry about anything else. I prefer a more globalized or more um, well-rounded approach to the training, just because I feel like that's what we progress the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree there. Oh, but
Yeah.
what might be interesting as well is if you're, I don't know if you're able to share, if not, all good, with say like Marvin Vittori, maybe use him as a
Hmm.
case study with maybe
Yeah.
how his strength and conditioning looks and maybe how it's, if it has at all, maybe changed or progressed over the years. If you're anything like me, you're short on time. Kids, family, work, training, and having to cook meals on top of that is just not going to happen. So I'm happy to announce Trifecta Nutrition are sponsoring the podcast. You get epic meals like these ones: turkey taco bowl, Texas barbecue protein plate. These are a couple of my favorites. But it means you don't have to prepare all your own meals, and it makes getting and good nutrition relatively easy. I've tried other meal delivery companies. Most of them are too high fat, not enough carbohydrates, or if you're getting kits where you have to cook it yourself, the portions for two is actually for one, especially if you are like me and you're training often. So if you want to take something off your plate and have meals like this delivered to your door, go down the description. There's a link there where you can order Trifecta meals. This is the performance line, which are higher protein and higher carbohydrate. And you can use code LIFTBIG40. You'll get 40% off your first order.
Yeah, so with Marvin, actually, okay, so Marvin is always a strong guy, okay, and I knew his strength and conditioning coach before me, and actually, that I was interning for him, and then he got other opportunities, and he decided to take that, and Marvin decided to stay with me. Um, Marvin was always a strong athlete, and he's still very strong, but I saw the most room for improvement with Marvin in like speed and power acquisition. Like we focused on for a few years, and you know we had a really good run at this time. A lot primarily on like all explosive and speed movements. Now that, like I said, we didn't leave out strength. I'm always going to do some component of strength. Now it might not be like, oh, we're going to do back squats and deadlifts every week, but when I think of strength training, I think of strength training like, is it heavy? And are we working in a, you know, 1 to 5 rep range, 1 to 6 rep range? For me, it can
Mm-hmm.
be, doesn't matter the movement. For me, it's okay, we're going to do a heavy loaded Bulgarian split squat, for example, and it's going to be a heavy 1 to 5 reps, 1 to 6 reps. That's what I'm looking at. If you can do 8 reps, we're going too light. Let's go heavier. Let's bring the reps down.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's strength training in my opinion. It's not only back squat, deadlift, bench press, whatever it may be. No, like if we're gonna do loaded pull-ups, right? Pull-ups can be a strength exercise. If I'm working in a 1 to 6 rep range, that's strength training. So when I look at things like that, I'm never leaving those things out of the program. We always incorporated something like that into the program, but we did shift the focus over to a little bit more plyometric agility type of training with Marvin. And this was like, I would say, from 2018 until um 2022, 2023.
But he had a
um
pretty good middleweight run, right? Through that
Marvin had
time.
a hell of a middleweight
Yeah.
run. We lost to Israel Adesanya,
Mm.
but we contended for the title. We fought for the title. And regardless of what people might think, in my opinion, that's still a big accomplishment in the UFC, is fighting for a title. It's still
Oh yeah.
amazing. And you know, I, me and Marvin still have a relationship. I am not as hands-on with his training now. After he left Southern California, he moved to Vegas, and he was working with the PI guys.
Mm.
And I don't I'm not coming on here to like bash what anybody was doing. I just don't think it was the best fit for Marvin overall. I think some of the,
Yeah.
like he agreed. He didn't stay there long because it wasn't the best fit on a variety of different levels. Now he's at ATT and he's happy, and I am helping with his strength and conditioning. I have more input. He has a coach there also, Will Futches, who was American top team strength and conditioning coach, and we talk regularly on programming for Marvin. And like I said, the same principles are still applying. Of what, I have my input, he has his input, and then we find common ground. A lot of things that we agree on, most of the things we agree on. So that it actually works well. That's just what you have to deal with when a high level fighter like that. They need to have eyes on them when they're training, and they need to have attention. I would never just give Marvin a program and say, hey, go figure it out. Sometimes I'll sit in on
Mm.
his sessions over a phone call, or Will is with him, and when Will is not able to be with him, then I try to we'll get a FaceTime and figure it out, and do the session like that. But some athletes are going to come to you and they're already very strong. So you have to focus on
Mm.
different physical qualities. That's how I look at it. It's like, okay, there's a point of diminishing returns. Marvin deadlifts fucking 500 pounds.
Oh
You
shit.
know what I
Okay. So
mean? Like, yeah, man, like he's strong. You know
pretty
what I
damn
mean?
strong. Yeah.
He's very strong. Like, how many fighters are deadlifting 500 pounds? Like,
Not many.
the diminishing returns on getting to 600 are it takes a lot of work to get to that extra 90 pounds. If he's deadlifting 505, and he can probably do 520, whatever, 80, 90 pounds. To get there, it's
Yeah.
going to take a whole lot more uh, work and effort. And he's not a power lifter. If he was a power lifter, I would be like, oh, we got to do it. But once we get to that strength level, it's like, okay, now we got to work on some different attributes. And I think things that are going to, you know, being able to apply that strength in a fast, timely fashion is going to be have the highest return on investment at that point.
So what kind of I guess what kind of exercises or philosophy are you looking at when you're looking at improving I guess speed and power qualities, rate of force development,
Mm-hmm.
I guess
Mm-hmm.
within we can use Marvin as a case study. Like
Yeah.
what was he doing there to be able to improve these qualities?
So we would always start with like extensive plyo work. Uh, and that just means like more reps, right? Like pogo, like it could be as simple as pogo hops, little hops to a box, stuff like that. And we would progress that depending on where we were, if he had a fight scheduled or whatnot, into higher intensity plyo work. Depth drops over hurdles, depth drops, lateral movement, whatever. I like depth drops a lot. Hopping off of a box, hopping over something, hopping to something, hopping whatever it may be. We're always looking at like advancing the exercise after the athlete gets down the basics of it, right? If we just hop off the box and jump, that's the basics, right? That's the basics. And also, I feel like the extensive plyos help with tissue elasticity in the lower limb, which I think has a major impact in like the movement of a fighter, moving forward, backward, lateral movement, stuff like that. I think that helps a fighter a lot because yes, we are extending the hips, but a lot of that work is coming from movement in the feet. It's all footwork. So having a strong and ankle and foot complex is going to help the fighter a lot in forward, backward, lateral movement. Um, though, like as I said, sometimes I will do those more intensely, up to like as low as 10 reps. But with the foot and ankle, really, you can get pretty high volume with those things because those
Yeah.
those it's pretty resilient and robust, and the endurance capabilities of the foot and ankle, just because we're humans, we tend to have a greater threshold for volume in our lower limb. Now, when I get to more like hip dominant and knee dominant jumps, I will lower the rep range there. Uh, Sometimes I will go as high as 6 reps. Sometimes I will go as low as 2 or 3 reps, depending on what we're doing. But I'm looking for overall just maximal effort and fast ground contact times when we do those plyos. Now, for example, if we're hopping off of a higher box, obviously I'm understanding that we're going to have a little bit slower of a ground contact, and just understand that when you
Mhm.
are going to do those plyometrics, we're going to have different focuses. Now, if I'm only focusing on ground contact time, it's just going to be that's going to be primarily lower limb focus. If I'm going to get deeper into a hinge or a squat position, I'm going to bias more of the upper leg, right? Glutes, hamstrings, and quads, but looking to put more force, more power output out. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes perfect
Yeah,
sense. It's
yeah.
also a nice. It's almost it's a maximal strength stimulus too when you're jumping off higher boxes
Yeah,
on top
people
of it.
don't
So it's
realize
just
that.
another way of training.
People don't realize that. Like the way I do the reason why I train, and I mean, let's be honest, Louis Simmons was the one who kind of like made that a popular thing. You would see his power lifters doing dynamic effort days, hopping from boxes, over boxes, onto boxes, seated box jumps. You would see him do banded resistance exercises like banded squats and banded deadlifts for that exact reason, because
Mhm.
he noticed when he started doing that with his powerlifting athletes that they would get a huge increase in their maximal strength, deadlift, squat, etc.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great exercises to use, and yeah, hugely applicable in MMA as well. With Marvin's training as well, how did his conditioning look through? I guess all those phases since that kind of that speed power was, I guess, your main priority during most of those years.
Yeah. Well, Marvin's VO2 max always tested really well. And when I first started working with Marvin, listen, man, every fighter that you ask, their biggest nightmare is probably gassing out in a fight, especially in MMA where, like you can take a lot of damage if you gas out. Um, so I also like I know I said we did have a focus on speed and more power stuff. I will say that, we also did conditioning. Now, depending on where we were at in camp, we would focus more on, sprints and stuff like that. If we're going to be doing a lot of power exercises, then I'm going to right after that session, we are going to do something like a sprint, shorter effort and repetition like that, like on a bike. Bike sprints versus climber sprints. We tend to not run as much when it comes to stuff like that. Just because also, if I finish a session in the gym, if I don't have a lot of space to work with, what am I going to do? Go have him go run sprints? Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, but with Marvin, Marvin was able to really build his gas tank. Marvin comes from Italy, northern Italy. It's in the mountains. It's a beautiful place. I've been there. It's a
Mm.
beautiful place. They're very well known for their bikers, like endurance biking.
Okay.
So like even Lance Armstrong, stuff like that, they would go train there during off season and stuff to prepare for like Tour de France, different stuff like that. Um, so Marvin always liked biking. He had some very nice bikes. Some of his friends owned a bike shop, and he had. It's crazy to me. I didn't even know this before that. Like, man, there's bikes that are 10, $20,000, which is insane to
It
me.
was
But
crazy, eh?
anyway, yeah, 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 yeah. But Marvin would really enjoy just getting on that bike and going to ride for an hour, sometimes 90 minutes, up to 90 minutes, which that starts to get on the long end. But it was something that he enjoyed, and it was something that he felt helped him in training. So yeah, I'm I think fighters need to do stuff that they enjoy, especially if it's going to help us
Mm.
any kind of benefit uh, for the endurance aspect. You know what I mean? Like if you like to go and ride your bike for an hour and you actually enjoy it, then I'm all for it. If you want to go do that on a weekend or maybe one time during the week, I'm all for it. Um, Now, if they're, I wouldn't be the biggest proponent of like going in dirt biking and fight camp. That's not I wouldn't recommend that because I'm looking at like uh cost cost benefit analysis here, and I'm like, it starts to look a little bit risky. But I have guys that like to do snowboarding, different stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, man, go for it. If, it challenges you in a different way and it makes you feel better, go for it.
Awesome. How what might be interesting with someone like Calvin Gastelum as well. How did how would someone like his strength conditioning differ to someone like Marvin? Was there much difference?
Hmm. Um, as far as programming, it kind of depends, right? Like, are we out of camp? Are we in camp?
We can cover both.
Yeah. So like out of camp, it's just very, very general physical preparation, like very general. It's basic strength movements, basic uh, plyos, and I like to incorporate throws and slams at the beginning of every workout. You, you,
Mm,
you could call them primers even, or kind of priming the system, but also we are getting adaptation from that. Um,
yeah,
I mean, man, at this point, like we have a warm up now where I do like, like it's probably 10 minutes. I call it a warm up, but we are improving general physical qualities within this warm up. And it's not just mobility, it's not just dynamic stretching and stuff like that. We're doing power skips, which is a low level plyo, in my opinion. We're doing hops, we're
yeah,
doing straight leg bounds, we're doing lateral like um fluid hops, like how can I say, like rhythmic and
yeah.
those are all building up general physical qualities. I call it a warm up because they do it every single training session when they come to see me, but it's a way to sneak in a little extra of general physical preparation, a little extra, and it's building physical qualities. And I sneak it in disguise as a warm up. We're doing cartwheels and different stuff like that. Like it keeps the athletes moving,
Mm.
and it's just building up little qualities that I think are important, and it's a way to sneak it in. But we're doing that all year round. Now, after we finish those stuff, then we go into like more jumps and throws and our strength. Now, a guy like Kelvin, um how can I say? So Kelvin is like an anomaly because, and I'm not going to put his business out there, but maybe some of the tests would not come back as like favorable as we would have liked. And then he would go fight 5 rounds and be completely like fine. You know what I mean? Like actual main events. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, maybe he didn't score as high on this endurance test as we had hoped, but at the same time, he went out there and he fought 5 rounds, and so that's when I really was like paying attention to things, and I'm like, okay, how much weight can we give these numbers that we're getting back? Because like I've seen it all, man. I've seen people with high VO2 maxes and they maybe are gassing out in a fight, and I've seen guys with lower end VO2 maxes and they're performing just fine in
Yep.
the fights. And it comes down to like, you know, is the fighter efficient? It comes down to maybe a matchup. It comes down to so many different factors that it's hard to nail it down. Now, does that mean I'm just gonna ignore it and we're not gonna use any of that? No, I think we should always be working to improve all our physical qualities as athletes. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna like just look at this number and say, oh my gosh, and get all freaked out about it. It's okay. How we feeling in sparring? Are we gassing? Okay, we got to do a little bit more. We got to do a little bit more cardio. All right, you feel great? Okay, well, let's keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah. And that just also highlights the limitations of all-encompassing metrics like VO2 max, because it doesn't tell us enough other
No,
than oxygen consumption during a test. It's
right.
actually a good
Yeah.
follow-on from which will be the podcast before this one that will people listen to that will go into that as well. But in camp, then, if we cover in camp in terms of differences, so you mentioned like Calvin maybe didn't score well on some of these different tests,
Hmm.
whereas Marvin was very, very strong. So were there any kind of key differences maybe as part of their more quote unquote specific preparation then leading into fights?
Yeah, like when I'm working with the guy all year round, and then we get into fight camp, I can focus more. I can use a better approach and focus more power, speed with the like the strength work will be like maybe some maximal isometrics and something like that. We'll use like some post activation potentiation work or something like that to keep the strength up without necessarily doing the heavier loads. But if it was up to me, depending on how long we had, sometimes I had Kelvin and he had 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Sometimes I had Kelvin and we had 12 weeks.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so it just depends. Like I always, which is another reason why I like to work all these physical qualities all year round. It's not like that way we're never lacking too far in anything, right? And it's even better when the athletes actually come around all year round. Sometimes I don't see guys until they get a fight, and then we have to go through a more strength focused block because they obviously are not going to be as strong if they haven't been training, and then we'll go into our power speed. And if it's 8 weeks, we will spend the first 4 weeks working on that more. Like let's build that strength again, and then we'll spend the last 4 weeks or so working on more developing that strength into speed and power. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. That gets it. And how many sessions a week would you usually have with them in the week?
Normally I spend 2 to 3 sessions a week with the guys. So right now,
Yeah.
I have most of my MMA guys. Two, I will put them on two strength. We'll call them strength sessions, even though they're all encompassing everything we already talked about. And
Yeah.
then on Saturdays, we will do our more endurance focused work, which um those will be like depending on where we're at. Off season, I'll even do like circuits and stuff like that because I just think it's good
Mm,
for muscular endurance. Now at different times of the year, we'll be more focused on like longer sprints. As I said, I like to do my shorter sprints on the same sessions as I will do my strength and power session, right?
mhm,
So if we're gonna, I'll keep that. I can keep that during the week, and we'll do some sprints right after the training. So that way we're aligning with the goal of that training session. Now on the weekend, that's when we'll do like maybe, we mix up the intervals, but it'll be, 30 second, 60 second, even 90 second sprints sometimes, or a more muscular endurance based circuit, just kind of taxing everything, trying to get the muscles working through a lot of different movements, and those will either be timed or repetition based. So I have 2 days a week where I'm going to do more strength, power, speed, whatever, or all of them at the same time. And those are during the week twice. Saturdays, that'll be more endurance focused, where it's going to be a super hard session. Uh, it's going to be a grind, and those are more endurance based. And as I said, we switch it up, but we shit, like one of my favorite is like and the least favorite of all the athletes is like a 30-second sprint, maximal effort on the bike or
mhm.
on the Airdyne or on the Versa climber, and then you rest for 4 minutes. And when people hear
Mhm.
that one, they're always like, "Oh, that can't be that bad. It's 4 minutes rest." I'm like, "Uh-huh." And those same people end up throwing up after number two.
Yeah, those
But
Wingates,
but
30
we're just
seconds are brutal.
yeah. So it's just we're focusing on different energy systems throughout the week. So like, I like to incorporate them all. I'm usually when I program, I follow a more polarized approach. Year
Mhm,
especially year round. Now, some people need it more than others, and we kind of talked about that on a post you did. Like some people come in and
mm,
like I see that this is where the testing actually where I'm like, okay, those are some things we need to improve. Like a ventilatory threshold one, when I see an athlete with a very low VT1, I'm like, that's a problem because now we're going to get into more anaerobic work, more glycolytic work at a faster rate, and so I'll have them do more of the more boring, lower intensity cardio
yeah,
work, and because they need it, because we need to get that higher. We need to get that higher. That's gonna be a big thing. Is like the longer we can prolong getting into that anaerobic area, the better the athlete's gonna fight. The more efficient they're gonna fight. I shouldn't say efficient because efficient can you can have the best cardio in the world, and if you go out there and blow your wad in the first 2 minutes, that's what it is. So, but you understand what I'm saying. Like the longer I can prolong getting into the more anaerobic glycolytic systems, then the better it's going to be for the athlete. Also, those things I find really help with like heart rate recovery in between rounds. But that doesn't mean that I don't use sprints. Like I use sprints pretty much year round too. We try to touch sprints at least once a week with all the all the athletes I train. So I use the mixed approach. Like if there's some value to be gained from it and we can fit it in, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like if it just doesn't
mhm,
work and you have 15 training sessions and you can't add one more, okay, then we got to figure out what to take out and what's the best way to optimize with the schedule that you have. But those are things that you got to figure out on the way. There's no one size fits all, and there's no um, definitive answer for everything. I think it always depends on the athlete, the time available, the way they're feeling, and what do they need more so than other times? Where are they at in camp? Where what can we afford right here and what can we not? So
mm,
the worst part about MMA, the part that makes it so hard, and the one of the reasons why I love it as a coach is because that challenge. It's not easy, man. Like for I train at a gym where there's like a lot of football players that work, and they're in the gym 4 or 5 days a week, and maybe that's it in the summer. Maybe they do a little bit of field work a few times a week, but they're just getting stronger, and like that's easy. And if they get
mhm.
tired on the field, they can say, "Hey, I need to come out and play." Dude, if you get tired in the cage, there ain't no getting out of there unless you're done. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
The
No.
challenge of it is why I love it, but it is also like what adds the stress. But again, I that's the that's the part I embrace and enjoy about it the most is the challenge of it. There's so many different
Yeah.
variables.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, probably a really big challenge around that is around their scheduling, especially with some of the UFC guys. They're probably doing their technical training 2, maybe even 3 times a day, depending on the day. So how are you then structuring, I guess, the extracurricular strength and conditioning? Are they coming in different days based on when they can, based on their schedule, or are you picking certain days? I don't know, based on what works for most people. How are you looking at that?
Yeah, so mm, with my UFC athletes, I help them set up a set schedule.
Hmm.
Um, so we have we sit down and talk about it, and now with all the guys I work with now, they've pretty much been with me for a while, so now it's just routine. We know the schedule already. These
Yeah.
guys are full-time fighters. It's not like they have to go to work some days and this and that. Like the UFC athletes, they're full-time. So we pretty much know the training schedule, which is kind of nice because it leads to a comfort and a routine and routine and that knowing of what, okay, I have this today, I have that today. It just takes a lot of stress out of the daily schedule, the day-to-day schedule. Now, are there times when, something arises, maybe an injury, uh maybe they are going to they have like a scheduled sparring with like a boxer, for example, or they got invited to go do a training. Oh, yeah, we make adjustments to that, but most of the time, I'm training with these guys Monday, Wednesdays, and we have Saturdays.
Mm,
So sometimes we'll do a Tuesday, Thursday, but in general, I'm putting 2 days in between the training sessions. Um, Usually with the UFC athletes, I'm training them in the evening. I prefer that they do their skill training in the morning. That way they're
mhm,
fresher for their skill training. And then they will come see me later. I value skill training over everything else because I think
mhm.
it's the most important for the sport. Because if you don't have the skills, then good luck with everything else. I also feel that's
Then nothing else matters.
nothing else. I don't. You could be the strongest guy in the world, and you don't have the skills. It ain't none of that shit matters. So I even as a strength and conditioning coach, I put my ego to the side and say, hey, I'm definitely not as important as a skill training. Now, sometimes guys will tell me, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go do a skill session instead of a strength and conditioning session. I'm like, go for it. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
It's especially with the guys who have been with me a long time. I've had guys been working with me for a long time. Like most of them have been with me for many years, and I know they're strong. If you're gonna skip a strength conditioning session to go do a wrestling session, I'm cool with that. That's fine
mhm.
because it's not like we're lacking. Now, if the guy is like completely out of shape and he's like not been training at all, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, okay, like because not only that, it's not only about like the strength part of it. If you just haven't been training and you're skipping sessions to go do this and that, it's like I I have some guys that have been in the UFC, been fighting all their lives. It's like you put yourself more at risk of injury. And sometimes it's like finding that line of like, man, you've had a lot of surgeries, you've had a lot of this thing. Like, just be careful. If you're not in shape and you go to a hard wrestling session and you're not careful with your partners,
Yeah.
then now you have an injury. So it's about communicating and working around when, as I said, there's so many different variables in this game. You just got to do the best that you can.
Mhm.
That's it. Like
Yeah.
you got to talk with them and just make sure they're aware of like all the different possibilities and you give your opinion and then you have to make a decision. I'm not trying to sway anybody's decision making. I just want to give you my input on what I think is best. Or I just want to give you all the different options available and the benefits of each option and then let you make your own decision.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. What might be interesting as well is we've talked a lot about MMA, and you mentioned you obviously train a lot of jiu-jitsu guys too.
Hmm.
Does your strength and conditioning differ much between the jiu-jitsu guys and the MMA guys?
There's slight differences. With jujitsu guys, I like to keep in like higher strength work longer in the camp, just because I feel it's more important. In
Mhm,
MMA, for the last for the last 4 weeks or so of their camp, if they're gonna fight, I will keep in more speed work, more power based work, and like agility based stuff. With especially if they're already pretty strong. I will add in some isometric work or something like that. But with the jujitsu guys, I will keep in more power or strength work and maximal effort like isometric work all the way up until tournament time. Also with jujitsu athletes, they compete a lot more. So for them, I have to tell them like, hey, let's pick out 1 or 2 tournaments per year that are the most valuable to us, that mean the most to us, that are the biggest to win, and we are going to try to peak for those tournaments. All the other ones, yeah, you're going to be strong, you're going to be, you know, whatever, but we're not going to invest on like trying to peak you every weekend for a new tournament.
Mm.
It's
Treat
like,
them more like hard rolling sessions instead or something.
yes, it's just a marker to see where we're at. I kind of take it like, oh, this is like a quiz, a quiz before we get to the big test, like like you would do in school. It's like, yeah, those are good. If you win them, great. If you lose them, it's not a big deal. That's not our focus. We're trying to win world championships. We're trying to win uh, super fights or whatever it may be. I have a guy that's gonna do a grappling match in one right now, and we're preparing
Nice.
him for that date. He's gonna peak on that date. You know what I mean? So um, with the gi guys, I train a lot of gi guys. The biggest tournament of the year is the World Championships in late May, early June. And I tell them at the beginning of the year, hey, Pans, I hope you do great because Pans is usually in March. I hope you do great in that. But for us, I'm going to set up our physical preparation for Worlds. So we are going to have
Hmm.
essentially a 6 month camp and building up all your physical capacities and peak you for a world championship because we're looking to develop world champions here. And I mean, I think I trained probably 8 athletes full time last year, and we had 4 world championships. So I think we did something
Nice.
right.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
How much does, because you talked about like a lot of GPP in here, does specificity play much a role in terms of exercise selection at all at any time within MMA or your jiu-jitsu guys?
It does. Yeah. When we are in camp, I look to do more specific things, especially around that 4 to 5, 4 to 6 week out. If they
What
if
would
they
be some
spend
examples?
so for gi guys, for grapplers, I'll have them do more stuff with like the grips and stuff with the like on ropes or towels, something like
Mm.
that will incorporate like on our pulling. I'll incorporate some specific isometric work that I see fit and to be able to finish submissions or just hold and control people more. Uh, for a fighter, it's going to be like more specific fight movement. I'll have them get in their stance and maybe they'll do like a resisted moving forward or resisted lateral movement or like just the. I mean, we always do medicine ball throws, and I'll have the fighter if I'm looking to do a specific drill, then they're going to stay in their fight stance and when they do their throws, like I'm throwing it to them and they're returning it fast. So
Hmm.
I toss them the ball, boom, boom. It's like a plyometric for full body, upper body work. Does that make sense? I throw the
Yep.
medicine ball to them. They're in their fight stance. They catch, boom, boom. So it's a quick stretch and boom, and I'll have them do it in their fight stance. I'll have them catch hooks like that. I'll have them do straights like that. That's the specific work we do. Now I could even look at that and be like, that's very general. I'm not like having them do how can I say what could be some stuff that I see like on the internet that I
Standard
don't know.
punches and
Yeah.
what- yeah.
that's not my type of thing. I'm not getting into that. I'm not saying that there's maybe no value in it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it does work. Um, Listen, let's keep the weight room and the movements that we do in here even on a specific sense, more general. Like throwing a med ball is throwing a med ball. It looks like a punch, but I don't call it a punch. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not, oh, we're doing med ball punches like, no, we're throwing the med ball. We're using our whole body. We're just working a similar musculature. I
Yeah.
just don't think there's a big difference. Also I see like I see it demonized on the other end of the spectrum where people are like, oh, landmine punch. Like a landmine exercise to me is just a general exercise And when I see people doing it as a punch, I I take the perspective of like, oh, it's kind of like a push press, you know, like it's a push
Mm,
press. I'm not looking at it like, oh, this is gonna make your punch stronger. I'm like, no, it's a push press. It's just a
yeah,
different way of doing the push press. I don't I think sometimes like maybe we will demonize things to like maybe get a little controversy and get some views on our page and you know whatever. But for me, I try to just see the exercise for what it is and try to identify like what physical qualities are we building with that, and if we're not building any physical qualities, then I leave it behind. I'm not going to waste
yeah,
my time putting stuff in the program that doesn't develop certain physical qualities. Now, if I can see something and I can identify the physical qualities that I think it's working or that I can see fit for that, then I can see some value in it. So, you know, landmine, I'm not selling it as like this is just like a punch, so I think it's going to improve your punch. No, it's a pressing exercise, it's a push, and it's fast. It's like a push press. That's how I look at it. You know what I mean? I'm not
mhm,
it, for me. I'm very I'm a conceptual learner, and once I understand the concept of something and I can use that framework to apply the concept and to apply the concept to whatever it is that I'm trying to do, right?
mhm,
So if I'm gonna make, I can make a landmine a strength exercise, or I can make it a power exercise based on the intention behind what we're doing. We can load it super heavy, and it could be a strength exercise. We could be on one knee, and now it's all upper body, really. Or I can make it a more power speed based exercise and lighten up the load and tell you, hey, I want you to move this thing as fast as you can. I just look at that kind of like a Olympic lift derivative at that point.
yeah,
Uh, I'm not like opposed to Olympic lifting. I'm not opposed to anything. I think they all have an application, and I understand the concept of Olympic lifting, and I can apply it in different ways that I see fit. That's the art, and that's the meshing the science with the art of coaching that I like to use my creativity and I have fun with. If I was
mhm,
only gonna be like some cookie cutter coach and like only do things that I know that I've seen people do in the past that I think, oh, just because they did it, it's like no, that's not how I think. That's not how I like to approach the game. I like to approach the art with and mesh it with the science. Um, the science is the concept of what we're trying to do. The art is how I want to apply it.
yeah. That's what social media trainers don't understand as well,
Yeah, I
which
mean,
is
so
why
many
there's
times,
so much
so
fun
many
stuff
times, I
out
think,
there.
yeah, so many times you see something online and then you're just gonna do it. But the first question that I ask myself when I see something online is, okay, what's the concept behind what they're doing? Okay,
Mm,
because once you understand the concept, then you can drive intention, and intention is going to drive the adaptation. So for me, I if we're doing speed work, but you're not putting maximal effort in that speed work, then I we're not. It's not going to work to get you faster. You know what I mean? Like if I'm having an athlete run and I'm calling it speed work, but they're jogging at 50%. We're doing like we're not going to get faster doing that. Now, don't get me wrong. There's times when you need to be technical and stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is like it, if I can see a concept behind what somebody is doing, and maybe they don't see it, and but I'm going to apply that concept, doing the same exercise but with a different intention. I'm going to get a different adaptation.
mhm,
Hopefully, that makes
for
sense.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that makes sense. I got a question in the chat for you. I don't know if it's in your warehouse or not, but can you ask him how to prepare mentally for a first amateur fight? Do you have anything for that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
So I will say, um, okay, mentally preparation. You need to put yourself in a lot of different scenarios in the training room and outside of the training room. Okay, when you go into the training room, don't just train with people that you know you can beat. You no, you want to put yourself against people that are tough, that are hard, that you might not want to train with because they might smash you, but you need to put yourself in those positions. Also, do positional work where you are losing in a position, right? You're going to start on my back. I'm going to start in the mount. I'm going to start on the wall, and I'm taken down, and I need to get back up. Those things are immensely useful. Now, I don't know the style of the opponent that you're facing, and I don't know your style, But I think, training with high level partners, especially at a low, at any level, really, at people at a little bit higher level than you are going to push you to get better. But you also need to work with some people that you can work on some things with, because sometimes I think we always want to train with high level partners. We never really get to like develop our own game on lower level partners, if that makes sense. So when I train jujitsu and I'm trying a new technique, I want to train it on white belts and blue belts and purple, up the chain. If I'm getting it in white belts, okay, I'm going to start getting it on blue belts. And then I start trying it on purple belts. But when I train with some of the guys that I train that are world champions, dude, I don't have the even choice to even get to that submission. I'm just trying to survive here. You know what I mean? Like I got to do whatever I can to get where I got to go and try to survive. I think people need to see both ends of the spectrum. Okay. Another thing is visualize outside of the cage, right? Visualize what you want to do. If you can watch any footage of your opponent, that's great, just to have an idea of what they like to do. Now, I don't say sit down and watch everything they do all day, because then you start getting in your head and it's not a good place to be. But you need to have an idea of what they want to do. Also, the biggest thing that I brought to a lot of the fighters that I train is recording your sparring sessions. Watch yourself. Put a camera out there, and you tell your coach or you tell your training partner, hey, this is just going to be for me. I'm not going to post any of this stuff, because that's kind of asshole stuff. Like you post yourself beating up on your training partners. It's not my thing.
Just the highlights, just you
Yeah,
getting the
yeah,
takedown and
exactly.
finish.
hmm And some people do it, whatever. I don't, that's their choice. I don't think it's nice to do to your training partners. Maybe if your training partner is like, oh, I don't care, you can post whatever. But what I'm saying to do is you got to watch yourself, because you're going to see mistakes that you make. You might be thinking that you're doing certain things and you're performing them at a high level, but in reality, you see it on film and you're like, wow, what was I doing there? You know what I mean? It's happened to all of us. I played high school football in California, and every single day we would watch our practice from the day before. We would study film of our practices, high school level. Okay. And that goes up in football, every level that you do. The higher you get level wise, the more important film study becomes. So amateurs need to be studying themselves and watching themselves and learning how to get better by watching themselves and watching other people uh, compete. So I hope that helps a little bit and answers the question.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. That was awesome. And to round out this podcast too, it'll be interesting to jump back a little bit into the MMA and Jiu-Jitsu strength and conditioning, and maybe touch on that taper week, because I think a lot of people actually had an email just today about about some of the questions around that kind of final week, like what should they really do. It'll be interesting to kind of maybe go through how your maybe final week or even maybe final 2 weeks ish
Yeah, yeah.
looks in terms of strength and conditioning, and how that may change.
So the last 2 weeks of the training, we drastically cut down. We don't change any of the movements. We drastically cut down on volume. Okay, we might do one set, maybe two sets, depending, but no more than that. We keep the rep range super low. So we're looking to increase intensity and drastically lower volume. I think that's extremely important. Um, we still do cardio up until about 7 days out. But when I say cardio, I mean like short sprints, and like decent rest, depending on like what the style of the fight is, something like that. But it's always going to be shorter sprints and a pretty good rest. um from the strength, it's pretty much out at that time. We don't do really any strength. If it might be one set of like an isometric or something like that, that's maximal effort, but that's as far as we're going to go with that. Usually the last week, if it's a UFC fighter, the last week they will see me on Monday, and we have like a tradition that we do there. They come in, they do one set of jumps, one set of they warm up first, obviously. They do one set of jumps, they do one set of throws, and then we'll do like a this is like a Charlie Francis method, where he called them tempos, where we're gonna do like a 70% effort on the bike, and then we get off and we move at like just shadow boxing, and we use that time for visualization at like a 40% intensity, and we'll do anywhere from 15 to 20 reps of those.
Yeah.
But usually it's super light. They're breathing through their nose the whole entire time during this session, and especially during the cardio. and 12 to 15 seconds of work on the bike, 70% breathing through the nose. They get off. Maybe they'll do a little bit of like shadow boxing at like 40 to 50%. And I always make sure I'm uh, telling them, hey, visualize what you want to do to your opponent. Visualize maybe what your opponent wants to throw at you, how you're going to block that, how you're going to counter that, etc. Now, I didn't used to be the guy that's like telling them strategically, hey, this is what you should do. Over the years, I've earned enough respect to where it's like, they tell me they have an opponent coming up, and I'll watch the film of the opponent, and then I'll just give my input then. But I'm not spending too much time like strategy based unless the athlete specifically comes to me and asks me like, hey, what do you think I should be trying to do here? I mean, I didn't used to feel confident in that. I wouldn't recommend new strength coaches like are going to tell your athletes, hey, this is how you should fight that guy. The only reason I've got to that point is because I also train these sports, and I literally watch every single fight that happens. I watch every single one. I that it's my passion. I'm like obsessed with this shit. I love to study film, and if they come to me and ask me about a certain opponent or certain things that they should look for, then I will give them my honest opinion and feedback. But I never ever give unsolicited advice on what I think you should be doing in the fight or how I think you should approach this one. That just takes time, and I've been doing this stuff a long time. I've been training a long time, and as I said, I probably watch more or just as much as anybody does in the game. You know what I mean? Maybe there's a couple MMA coaches out there like John Danaher definitely watches more film than me. I can name some others. You know what I mean? Some that are very good and they watch a lot of film, but I I literally watch like wrestling matches. I literally watch like the guys will always message me like, "Hey, who won this jujitsu match?" Because sometimes they want to know who won. I'm watching it. I watch the Muay Thai fights and one. I watch it all. I just fucking love combat sports,
Yeah.
and obviously by watching so much and training it, you tend to learn the game, and that took many years to develop. Close to 10 years now. Of like literally watching like my whole weekend is that like that's all I do. my my
A
my
dream.
my my girlfriend doesn't always is the happiest with that, but hey, some people watch football all Saturday and Sunday. I'm watching fights.
Yeah. Nice. I love that. That's a perfect way to round out this podcast, Chase. Where can people find and follow you? Keep up with what you're doing.
I have a YouTube channel, Chase Your Dreams 247. They can follow me on Instagram at Chase Your Dreams 247. Both of those channels. I try to post as often as I can, but also I'm in the gym a lot, so I don't maybe get to post as much as I would like. But I try to provide as much value as possible. And really, I just show you. I'm not trying to like I said, sway any opinions on anything that I do. I'm just showing you what I do with some of the highest level athletes in the world and what works for us. If something doesn't work for us, I will not show. I will either tell you that or I just won't show it to you. So all the stuff that I show to you, all the information that I give you, is stuff that I incorporate with some of the elite athletes in the game, and it works for us. And I'm sure if it works for us, it will also work for you.
Perfect. I'll link all that up down in the description too for anyone who wants to give Chase a follow or reach out or whatever you want to do. But I appreciate you coming on, sharing everything, even the case studies and stuff of the UFC guys. That was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I hope there was some value for you here, and just anybody. I hope you guys saw some kind of value from it. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate you hitting me up and asking me to be on. I do. Thank you, man.
No, perfect. I appreciate you coming on.
No doubt. Yeah.